Welcome to Industry Insights with Route Consultant, your front row seat to the fast-moving world of logistics and beyond. Each week, we bring you game-changing insights, real-world strategies, and fresh perspectives to fuel smarter investments and build stronger businesses. Join us as we sit down with expert guests to explore emerging trends and pressing topics across a wide range of industries. This is Industry Insights. We are back in the studio with Amy and Dave Byers, and this time we are going to be digging into one of the biggest things that FedEx cares about. I think often when we talk about FedEx, their big concerns, we say safety and we say service. Mm-hmm. So I think I just want to start, when you say service, when you hear service, what does that even mean from a FedEx perspective?
Inbound service, right?
Yeah, delivering the packages.
Okay, yeah. I think that's the easiest way to start is
right.
Delivering the packages is what we're talking about there. At the end of the day, that's let's get this package from the terminal, and if there are packages to pick up, let's get them back to the terminal.
Yes.
So when we talk about it, though, what is FedEx trying to monitor on? How are you judged? What is service when it comes to actually managing a contract?
So I think the big thing that pops up is medals, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone immediately goes to how are we judged, how are we rated?
And what are medals? For
so
people
medals
who haven't heard of
is a kind of holistic approach that FedEx has put in place to manage contractors. So you can kind of get a glance or a spotlight image of how you're doing.
Yeah.
Rated in gold, silver, and bronze. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple categories: service and safety, obviously being the weighted, the heaviest, the largest percentage. Mm-hmm. And then productivity and customer service are the two smaller ones, which is the smaller ones are where efficiency and ride, customer service, and PPOD and those kinds of things live. Very important, but only 20% of your whole grade, if you will. Yeah. So we obviously, you have to be safe. It's required.
Yes.
And very expensive if you're not.
Yep.
So that one's super easy to kind of understand and digest, even though there are some outside things in safety, like hours of service and disqualifications and things like that live in safety, but it's mostly truck safety, accidents, general liabilities, preventable accidents, things like that. So I think that is super easy to understand, but when it comes to service, I think that one is one that we're constantly looking for, and there's some probably near misses and some things that we overlook, and that's what we hear quite a bit. So we're kind of looking over here doing this with RIDE and PPOD, and that's what the managers, maybe that's what the terminal manager's hot button is, that they came from a meeting and that's the buzz right today, and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this, and then service is over here doing its own thing, and all of a sudden you look and you're at a 99 and you're silver or bronze and you don't know why. And you go, well, 99 is like good, right? And why does that seem not good?
Yeah.
So I think understanding what that piece of service is probably
that's
what
definitely
the focus, what that focus of today is kind of the question that you were asking.
Because I agree, it doesn't feel as flashy. You know, you have a big accident. You're like, okay, I got to figure out what happened. I got to prevent those accidents. I got to look at my Vetter cameras to see what the habits were and try to prevent something like that from ever happening. But it's little things from service that add up that can be misses that happen over time or that you let slip, and suddenly, like you said, your service is dropped, and now you're trying to go back and figure out what patterns have come into place or what things were I not looking at correctly from the beginning. So I think let's dig a little into what are the actual pieces of service that FedEx judges on, and then we can talk about how to actually manage those things.
So some of the service things like that we monitor from day to day is we have our managers in the DSW, which is kind of your snapshot of your daily service. It's called Daily Service Worksheet. Yeah. And you can monitor what's happening. Okay. So you can get in and you can check it, and you can kind of intercept. Like if it's maybe it's a business that goes out to lunch every day, and we were there during lunch hours. So you need to we'll do the research and we'll call the customers. They'll say, oh, we were at lunch from 11 to 12, and your guy was there at 11:30. So you say, hey, I need you to go back. That affects service. Not delivering that package will affect your service. So deliver the package, we swing back by, we get it delivered. That's helpful. So that helps your service. Those small onesie, twosie kind of things, because that might have been a bulk stop, 30, 40 packages. You need to get that stop off. And then we also run into
bad addresses.
We monitor bad addresses.
Yeah.
And what I've trained the managers to do is to kind of identify the bad address, and we'll actually look up the customer, the address, and there's a couple different ways to do that. And we'll try to intercept it, and we'll try to fix that address, call the driver and say, hey, we know this was a bad address, but here's the right address. Could you swing back by and just fix it, deliver it, and get the package, delivered for the day? So those are two really simple ways that we found to just get packages delivered.
And we try to get our managers to do that pretty regularly. So if we have like an 8:30 dispatch, 9:30 dispatch, they're checking it like 10, 11:30 or noon, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then again at 5, because we try to catch it when they're in that area, right? Because that's the biggest, well, I'm not going back because I'm already 20 minutes away. And that is a waste of fuel. We get that too. But it's also, can contribute to either laziness or, they didn't load that, or, all the misscan things. So identifying those issues throughout the day make it much easier to correct, because they're right there, or, while it's happening, kind of while they're in that headspace. Makes a huge difference.
And we'll talk more about managers in just a minute, but I do think that already starts to point to when people come to me all the time and just be like, what do I do if my manager's not on a truck? Like, how do they fill their day? And it's like, there are things you should be doing throughout the day, even if there aren't fires to put out.
Yeah.
Service is an area where they can spend a lot of time during the day to help be, preventing future problems or correcting quickly problems that could be corrected in the moment, but can't be corrected tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Missed deliveries.
We do a lot with missed deliveries.
We'll identify those and watch those drivers maybe a little bit more closely.
And does the DSW that you're talking about, the Daily Service Worksheet, how real time is that update?
That's immediate.
It's pretty accurate.
So you can truly monitor it and use it as your pane of glass.
And
there's not. I mean, there may be a lag, but it's not like.
It could be like seconds, but not hours.
If someone's scanner is not transmitting, it could mess up. But you should catch that.
Yeah.
And you can make a call to that driver and say, hey.
Some of our rural areas, all of a sudden, the person will be like way behind, and then all of a sudden it's like 27 stops. You're back. You're like,
they're back
on track.
Now, if you, let's say you had some missed deliveries on a day, if you go and try to deliver it the next day, is that still a hit on your service for?
That won't hurt your service, because it'll still show delivered. So that won't hurt your service, but that's just a customer service.
But it'll hurt your service today. It just won't be updated until tomorrow when you fix it.
Got it.
Right? If that's a 85 or any of those codes that don't get reconciled. I think leaning on technology is huge too. So we use FCC for the pickup windows, which is, kind of, they turn yellow and then they turn red, so you can get kind of a glaring look of where your people need to be. And if they're not going to be able to sweep it, you can dispatch somebody that's close. We do that. Our managers and our supervisors do that kind of while we're watching. There's text threads and group chats and things like that where we can watch those things happen. And then technology, we use Ground Cloud, and the no scan report pushes. We've worked with the terminal, so it automatically pushes right to Ground Cloud, so it'll say no scan, no scan. Obviously not as helpful as actually scanning the box and putting it where it needs to be, but at least it tells you where in the route that there's a box that's supposed to be there. So they can, while they're in that stop or the next stop, they can kind of rummage through that section of their truck and see if the box is there. Instead of just finding 10 of them at the end of the day and saying, well, I'm not going all the way back. Especially in our rural contracts, it's really difficult to do that. And in those rural contracts, it's tough because we may only have 40 or 50 stops on, or 40, 50, 60 boxes on the truck. So you miss one and you're already into the 90s, 80s in service. So, and we have quite a bit of those, so the average, so the other folks really need to pull their weight to help that average kind of stay up. And we really need to be diligent about coding and service crossing and doing everything the right way. Yeah.
So coding wise, all codes showed up on the DSWs as well, or how much do you track and make sure that people are actually coding packages correctly? And I guess just a quick overview of what you mean when you say coding.
We can check every code that gets placed on a package. So anything from damaged packages to not my package, but on my truck. We can monitor that, and I can actually look and see, if a driver says that package isn't mine, I can see what route it's assigned to, and if it's assigned to him, then he needs to go deliver it, or it's one of those one-off
Or if it's
kind
a
of
nearby.
situations.
Yeah.
So coding in general is FedEx's way of identifying where the box is for the customer. So it communicates with FedEx and the customer where the box is, and if it wasn't delivered at my front door, why and what happened to it. So those codes are reason codes, right, for why it got delivered or where it got delivered or why it didn't, your dog was out, whatever that looks like. So all these codes, if done correctly, will kind of hedge off any negative situations with our only customer, because you're at least above and beyond communicating with where the box is. And then when you do bring boxes back, they have the service cross where you kind of say where it is, what it should have been, what the address was, and what time and day it happened. So they can kind of get an idea like, oh, at least you put in the effort, right? You didn't just say, screw it, I'm not going back and delivering that. So I think that in general, staying up on those codes, but it is hard when the boxes aren't on the truck. Sometimes they're on a neighboring contractor, so now you're trusting that the contractor is going to code the box the right way because it's actually your box. But I think just staying on the staff to let them know, like if you're not going to do it, which is code 27, right? I'm not going to do it, not going to attempt it. Just be honest. We'll have that conversation tomorrow, but be honest. So integrity with the coding the most. And I think one of the new things is with Dro and Ground Cloud, we flex areas quite a bit. So if, I'm in Route 1 and you're in Route 2, and my Route 1, just everybody in that neighborhood decided to go shopping that day, right? And we have all these packages, and your route is not very heavy. We kind of flex that over. And the culture, especially the mentality with some of the older, more tenured drivers, not older in age, but older in tenure, legacy drivers, if you will, they're like, well, that's not my street.
Oh.
That's not my area. And I'm like, no, today it is your street and it is your area because Amy had 200 and you only had 60. So we're flexing in Dro, we're giving you an anchor area, right? So the understanding of that conversation was also a huge service, kind of game changer. And we have
they
to
would
watch
just code
that.
those as not their packages because it's not
Not
their
my route.
area.
So wrong route.
So that affects your service.
It's just a culture and training.
So we have to
thing
communicate
there.
to the drivers and say, hey, maybe on Saturdays you take a little extra area, and that's what it is. But this is your area. We can't have those packages brought back as not yours.
Yeah, because and it's not even necessarily, a malicious thing on the driver's part. They might literally think that it's not even your zip codes. Like they might think it's another contractor's. Like you can give them the benefit of the doubt, but there's conversations that you can have there about.
Yeah. I'm like, you're still done at 2:00 today.
Yes.
There wasn't a lot of volume. Thank you for helping.
and you said 27, so that's when they actually are not even going to attempt it. What are reasons you see drivers coded as a 27?
Other than quitting.
Yes. Yeah. Are there any legitimate reasons? I guess. Yeah.
If it's not reported on their truck, they find it at the end of the day. If
So they've done their full route.
They've done the full route. Now they found the package, or they couldn't find it during the day when they were at that stop.
Yeah.
And then it was loaded on the wrong shelf, and it's too far to go back. We say just code it appropriately, and we'll deal with it, because then we can have the conversation. Why did you have this? And they can tell us, oh, it's loaded on the wrong shelf. So then we can give the feedback where it needs to be given to correct the issue, or to say, he was willing to do it. He just couldn't find it when
ran
he was
out
there.
of time. Sometimes if they have maybe even a breakdown, usually if there's a breakdown en route, flat tire, something like that, we send others.
Right.
To kind of save the day, sweep something, help them out. But there's times, where it just we run out of daylight. You just run out of hours, you run out of daylight, and we just don't lie. Just code it what it is. It's not an 82. It's a big thing. So integrity is definitely a big, and we'll have the conversation tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just say like, hey, it's 5:00 and I had some more to be, we'll have that HR conversation.
We'll have that
conversation tomorrow, but at least you did the right thing and coded it what
and
it was.
told us that,
so it's a behavior. So it could be employee, behavior situations where there's a 27, and it could be actually guidance where we're like, everybody's home. We're not doing it. We'll just eat it today. Service is still going to be okay. It's only 3 boxes.
Nobody's hurt. Nothing serious.
Correct.
Life-threatening happened.
Yeah.
But we will have a conversation.
Yes, but the ones that we can fix, we try to fix real time.
Yeah.
Dave gets in there if the managers are out doing something, but someone's always poking around to make sure that pickups are good and deliveries are good, and there's if there's any missed deliveries that we get reported, like, hey, where's my box?
Yeah.
We correct those real time.
And so what does good look like? What is, what's a good service record? What do you guys push for in your own businesses?
We push for a 99.3 every day.
Yep.
So that's the goal. It gives us a little buffer to be a little, if it goes down a little bit. But I'd say most days we run really good service.
99.7.
But as long as you're monitoring the service, the issues that we talked about already, then it goes pretty smooth.
And if you have a tough day, it's not the end of the world, right? Because they are weekly averages and monthly averages that FedEx grades you on. So you can have a tough day, but as long as you're diligent and honest about it and have that conversation, sometimes we head it up and Dave will text one of the managers. Like our manager will text Dave and then Dave will text one of the terminal managers. He's like, hey, that wasn't great today. Like we had a guy, got really sick. We tried, but we have a plan for tomorrow. We'll get it all cleaned up. So I think that helps also with credibility and responsibility, taking ownership. So it's a big thing. But the contract averages are also, in metals, they're also managed and based against other contractors in your hub area and nationally. So we've been in situations where we've been like, well, we're 99.06. Like we're well above what the contract says.
Yep.
We're not where we want to be, but we're good. And then we slide into a different metals category and we're like, well, what happened? They're like, well, yes, you met all the contractual, right, indications, but you compared to your peers, your other contractors in the network, you're a little bit lower. So we try to shoot for that 9.3. We feel like the sweet spot is 9.36 to kind of stay in that silver gold. And that allows you to have kind of that oopsie day. So if you get the majority of 99.7s, 99.8s, smaller contracts, I'm sure can do 100. But the rural contracts, like I said, it's very difficult to manage 100 just because one box can really kind of
that was
shake
my next
the whole
question
truck.
is like, is it ever worth it? Like, I think a lot of people when they come in are like, okay, service matters. I'm going to go for 100% of packages. How realistic is that in any, average size business?
It's a great goal. Great goal to have.
Yeah.
But
we've done it.
we run
regularly.
100 a lot, but it's okay. You're going to have issues that are out of your control. You'll have bad addresses that you can't find the correct address to. You'll have businesses that are closed. The important thing is just to try to minimize that. So if there's a business that's closed every Thursday, you input that in the scanner so those packages don't come to your truck on Thursdays. And that helps your service. But you have to do the work on the backside of it too.
Get with a terminal manager. Instead of doing the same thing every day, right?
Yeah.
It's definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Work it out. We have a guy that gives us a complaint every day we go down the street. He's at the very end. He does not get packages. And our guys they're like, we're not going there because it's their neighbors. So we've reached out to the neighbors and we're like, can we access your house from the other street? And they're like, yep. So we park on the other street and our guy walks it and we get it done. But it's just those things, problem solving and figuring it out instead of just saying like, oh, well, this is what happened. I'm like, okay, well, it happens 4 times a week. Every week, you're killing me, right? So we have to think about it. We've had in some of our rural contracts where they have these wild dogs kind of running around. We've said if we can't get this, you can either put a dock box at the end of your driveway or something. We're going to have you pick them up at the terminal.
Okay.
So there's ways to have conversations with people instead of just kind of eating the bad service.
Yeah.
But monitoring that DSW throughout the day, we share it with our managers. We talk about management and seniors and leads. We text that to a group at 10 noon, 1, 2, and then like 3 and 4, because we try to get ahead of any of the struggles. And some of our supervisors will say like, hey man, do you see what's going on? Like there's some codes over here, so-and-so's already running a 96%. Like what happened? They're like, oh, he's going to swing back. Like, okay, cool. Or the business was closed or whatever happened. It's not on his truck. So as long as he's coding it correctly, right, we'll figure it out. But they look at those things instead of at 4:00 when everybody's already made a mental game for what their day looks like.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm not helping. I'm going home and mow the grass, right? So we try to identify those service failures in those situations, bad addresses, all those things, really early in the day.
Yeah.
And we just watch it.
Or else they build up.
And then all of a sudden it's 9:00 at night. And you're like, who the heck knew that so-and-so brought 30 boxes back?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, he was out late. No, nobody was looking.
Yeah. Do you think, do you feel like service is more on your manager's responsibility than the AOs? Like, how do you feel about that distribution? Obviously, everything is ultimately on you as the AO.
Sure.
But how do you feel about, management, BC ownership of that?
I think with our structure that we have, our BCs are really managing it. And we have a layer between me as the AO and the BCs. We have a senior level management that they kind of hold the BCs accountable to, but they'll also take responsibility for the service. So they're watching it as well.
Yeah.
But it's a good BC role because it's something they can monitor during the day.
Yep.
So you mentioned before, what do they do during the day?
Yeah.
That's a great thing for them to check. They can check it as often as they want. And if something changes, they can go in and research it and do the homework, and it'll keep them busy. But if there's nothing to do, that's okay too. That means they're doing their job.
Yeah.
You can also look, so some of our managers will, if they have the time, right, if time allows, they'll get into Ground Cloud and they'll look at some of the maps. And I like to say it looks like the driver's driving around in circles, right? And it's like back up, turn around, and they couldn't find the house. So it's because in Ground Cloud it's like a little yellow chicken tracks, right? And you can see where they go, the arrows. So that's a great stop to audit, right? Just to pop in, especially on your new people, to kind of go in and make sure that 123 Main Street has actually been delivered to 123 Main Street, and have that conversation like, hey man, I saw you were having like a little bit of trouble. Like, did you find the house?
Yeah.
Because sometimes new people, they're just like, screw it. And they just
It's like, I got 100 more stops to make.
Correct. So I'm just going to go ahead and figure this one out. I'll leave it here and hopefully the neighbors will figure it out. So trying to identify those situations so you can train kind of in real time.
Yeah.
And it really does help. So there's different ways of monitoring, not just the DSW.
Yeah.
So to kind of monitor those things and make sure your service is good for the day.
For managers, I often, if they do have, if they're thinking service first, how do you balance them just being like, service needs to be great, FedEx needs to be happy, but also, there are expenses as a business owner if they're deploying too many people on the road, or if they're doing things to try to keep service up that just end up really hurting your bottom line. How do you balance that conversation with managers?
We do a stops per resource summary at the end of every dispatch. So we know kind of per contract where we want to be.
Yeah.
So they'll send us a report at the end of dispatch and say,
Got
hey,
it.
it's nothing crazy. It's just hey, we're at this many stops per resource today. And if it's too low, they know, like, we won't be happy with that.
Yep.
So,
But it could be reasons. They could be training, retraining, auditing. There could be a bulk stop that's kind of messing with the
so if we run a
average
bulk
stop
guy that runs 5 stops a day, but he's a resource, so he really impacts that calculation. So we take that into account, and we plan for it, and we try to make it so it's, but they know, so they know if it's really light, they have to really keep a close eye on it because everyone will be done early.
Yep.
So we should have 0 service issues on an early day.
Yeah.
But the service will hurt on an early day or a light day because that 1 or 2 boxes really does tank
Impact
the overall
things,
percentage,
small
right?
number.
So
Yeah.
small
So they have
the
to watch it
denominator
closer.
changes, so everything kind of, so
But
everything
I
kind
think
of
that
changes.
just comes down to, you guys are really transparent. You found a metric that can be transparent without you saying, this is how the bottom line looks, and you're completely tanking my profitability. It's like, this is a really easy, transparent metric that you know what good looks like, and you know what bad looks like. And so if it's outside the range that we want it, just try to help us explain or understand why, while you're still balancing service. Those are things that the manager can understand and control without, needing to analyze a P&L. So I think that's a really important flip side of this because, like we talked about, 100% service isn't always possible. And also if you're pushing service over everything, if service is great for your metals and everything else is in the dumpster, then you're not doing great.
Well,
either.
and that's where we talk a lot about that. Silver is kind of our sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
Because we can manage profitability, we can manage service, and we can manage safety in this kind of window of silver, right?
Yeah.
Because it may not be as efficient, but the service is in the window. And in the window, again, to that 99.36 is kind of where we shoot for. So it's kind of a nice, but you have to manage that, what it means to your business, right? And how that looks. If you're running 10 P1000 routes, and everybody's doing 180 plus every day, you get a little bit more wiggle room.
Yeah.
Right? You misdeliver one package and you're like, or you don't deliver a package, you bring something back and you're like, okay, you're like 99,999. Whereas you have a bunch of routes that are only doing 40 or 50 stops.
Yeah.
You miss one,
It's a big
and
deal.
that average really does start sliding. So those are conversations that we actually even bring up in renegotiations and in unique characteristics. Like, how do we manage to the same metric system that even our Cleveland contract measures to? So that's one of the other things that we talk about when we talk about the benefit of Dave kind of leaning into all these different contracts. They're all managed differently.
Yeah.
So have conversations with your terminal managers, because the interpretation and the execution might be different.
Yeah.
And the outlying, how you drop down from 123 stops a day to 100 stops a day. Couple missed packages changes gears pretty quickly. So getting everybody on board, but like you said, not hyper focusing on one thing and then kind of letting this drop. But definitely safety and service. We reprioritized. Dave was kind of jumping in to ride and PPOD pretty intensely. And our service, he's kind of didn't watch service for like a week and left it to the management level and was like, whoa, and it just took a little bit of time where we had a conversation with the customer and some of the, kind of the numbers folks on how things were calculated. And he's like, oh, I need to focus over here. Like, this is a much bigger conversation. So we're still having those conversations and sharing the information, learning along the way.
Yeah. So there's two other areas of service, or two other times that I want to talk about service. One is Express has changed things. How have those packages with Express added, complexity to your service calculation?
Express priority.
Yeah.
Right? It has to happen. You have to be there in the windows. You have to get them on your truck. You have to keep them organized. You have to get them delivered in the time frame.
Yeah.
So that service, I don't want to say unforgiving, but it's a priority to us to make sure we get all of them delivered. And if you have a city route, they can't do 20, so you have to spread them out. So you have to get people passing through town to help with it and support it.
Managers, sweeps,
Managers help, and then they have to be back at the terminal at a decent time. So you may have to send management out to collect packages if it's going to be a later night for somebody, to get those back so they're back in time. So
we have them in that terminal that we have Express. They look at how many they have, where they are, and they have to communicate early if they're not going to make it, or if they have issues, or if they're so busy they're not going to be able to meet the sweep to get them back to the terminal, because it's not just delivering them or picking them up. It's actually getting them back to the terminal to cut off as well. So it's kind of like this very delicate, ballet of of structure and expectation and delivery and time commits and all these different things that you're balancing now. So we have changed the way that the routes run. So if we had a guy that was doing 134, he's probably not doing 134 anymore, right? He might be doing 105 because he's got 3 or 4 pickups, or he's got a couple of express deliveries. So we say it's not harder, it's just different. So it's a huge mindset shift, but service definitely has to be the focus. Like, there is no, leeway.
Yeah.
So our manager in that terminal is hyper focused on Express and watching those deliveries and watching the pickups and watching the windows. And if it gets within 10 or 15 minutes, and you're like, where are you? We're dispatching another resource. We're changing gears. Or if that person just kind of lost track of time, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was, 10:15, and I got to be there at 10:30. But there's also exceptions, so they have to manage to all that. But I think the big thing is managing it in the morning, making sure that no one has too many, or if there are too many, to kind of make a plan for that early on, instead of waiting until people fail en route. So
that one's ultimately one where, although we say, don't prioritize service over everything else to the rest of your contract, Express does have to. You have to, at least right now, the way it's being built in, the way FedEx is prioritizing it, that for now has to be something that you figure that puzzle piece out first, and then everything else fits around it.
And honestly, that's going to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Because if you don't manage to kind of a balanced workload for your drivers in Express, where they can maintain service and actually hit that service bonus, right? Where they can't achieve that, they're going to be rushing.
Yeah.
And rushing means cutting corners, and rushing means accidents, and then safety tanks. So then you get this, small bonus for doing your right thing, and then it costs you, you know,
Yeah.
$5,000 because, you know, you backed into a house.
Yeah.
So, you know, those, so those are the things that I
Yeah.
think, you know, by managing to service first and making it manageable and doable for everyone, it keeps your people safe. You know, so that they're not out until 6 or 7 o'clock and they're chasing a clock and, you know, making their own plans and things.
Yeah. And then the last area is during peak season. So how do you think about service the same way? Is it harder? And does FedEx give you any more, you know, grace around service during peak or not?
I would say peak is better.
Oh, okay.
More packages.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you have
so
more stops on the road.
Changes the
So
average.
there's
The
a-
math,
so-
the
so-
math, we're mathing a little bit more.
So your averages are
Yeah.
better. You can have a little more error. But we monitor it twice as heavy. We're in it instead of the every couple hours, like Amy said, that we are for sure in it. We leave it open on our computers all day.
Yeah.
And we're refreshing and we're monitoring and we see if someone says I can't finish or I can't do this anymore, that we send someone out to intercept the packages and keep them on the road. So
So I think at peak, service is a different conversation too, because peak isn't really about the number, right? That 99.3, 99.36. It's really about the boxes that have to come back tomorrow, because those aren't coming. They're not going away.
Yeah.
So if you have twice as many guys out and everybody brings 10 back, you're rolling, you know, 500 boxes or 300 boxes, and that is going to get loaded on top of tomorrow's full route. So you couldn't get today done, and now we're already starting out with a 300 package jump that we have to clean up and then get clean on that volume. And again, knowing that we have line haul, and I know they're using every single resource, and they're two tripping guys, and they're moving trailers, and they're bringing in extra volume, or they're processing volume from the night before, premium volume, on a Sunday or whatever that looks like. We get some of that data, and we know, like you have to get these done today, or else it's going to be a nightmare.
You literally see the load coming.
It is going to be a nightmare
I'm bringing that load,
Correct.
and we've got to get it out tomorrow, so get ready.
Correct.
Yeah.
And an extra 100 stops rolled is not 100. It's not a route, because
Yeah.
they're 10 stops from 35 different routes. They're all across, you know,
Right.
your area. So it's not an easy fix. So I think staying ahead at peak service is way different conversation, because it's more about, I guess, repercussions of really not, it's not just like the, you know, the outcome of, oh, we had a 96 or 98 day. It's really about what are we up against tomorrow.
And that's I think where you really see the problems during peak is this: you get behind, and then it's a snowball, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And especially if for people who are under resourced or new, that's kind of the challenges that I'll see there.
I think one of the big conversations we have about service is also about expectations.
Yeah.
So with the FedEx volume, right, it's very volatile. We get heavy right now because of tax season. Then it's going to be Easter. Dave always says Mother's Day is very heavy, but Father's Day is not. But then we have, you know, that, and then we kind of go into this drought in, you know, the summer
Late
months.
summer, yeah.
And then the sales reps are ramping
school.
up August, September for a peak, trying to get new volume, new contracts. FedEx is shifting things, making changes. And then you're overstaffed. God, I'm never allowed to use that word. You're overstaffed because you're hiring.
Yeah.
So you keep everybody moving and working. So the volume count drops, and then they get slammed at Christmas, and then they come out of that. And in Ohio, it's weather.
Yep.
So we have a lot of heavy days because of delayed weather and catch up.
Yep.
So the question then becomes, well, I'm doing 80 stops every day, and now you want me to do 140. So the hand comes out, and they're looking for more money,
Yep.
and they're looking to achieve that same service level. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're welcome for the 80.
Yeah.
You were actually supposed to be doing 125, so you're really only doing 20 more. But it's that gap between what I'm currently doing and what my daily expectation is, and then what my kind of max will be. And the gap between what you're currently doing and your daily average, that conversation needs to happen, because it's very easy at 125 to be like, well, I did my 80, So I don't really care about the service on the rest of those because that's you pushing me harder. Or I'll go back and get them, but it's not worth it to do this. Or on a Monday when they're back to the terminal by 2:00, and Wednesday they had to work until 5:30, right? And they're like, "Whoa, this is crazy." But to have those conversations really forefront and say like, "Okay, like everybody enjoy the week. Like volume's light and it's gorgeous outside, right? It's 80 degrees in Ohio." But those days are coming. Yeah. So to remember these days when
remind them of the good times when they're in them.
Yes, when the gap comes, right? When the good weather's here, when you're wearing shorts and you're, kind of looking to help someone at 3:30.
Yeah.
So I think those are really big conversations because I think that was a miss for us several years back. We didn't have that, and then we would get pounded, and they're like, "But I do 80 day, and now you want me to do 40, or 140, like that's crazy."
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's very easy to remember those days when you got off at 2,
right?
And hyper focus on a day where you get off at 8.
And from a geography standpoint, sometimes we can't load that person down. Right. It's just they just won't get it, or because of pickups or whatever that looks like. But that 80, they still might be done at 4 or 5 o'clock, but it seems less. Yeah. Right. And then you just ask them to do more. And that actually does affect service quite a bit. So that's when HR gets involved and those conversations. And you have to have some, opportunities, or maybe you do want to collapse a route. And you can say like, "Hey, if you want to take part of this, if there's a route in between the three of us," and I'm like, "I'll take 20, you take 20, you take 20. What does that look like financially?" It saves me a truck. It saves me payroll. But if we're not going to do it, if it's not sustainable with service, then it doesn't work, right? Then it's a miss. So all those things are kind of going on in the background as it relates to service.
Yep. It's all one interconnected story of, we talk about all you have to do is get the package from point A to point B. And at the end of the day, that is true. But there are little things to manage and conversations to have and priorities to have when you're both in for you as an AO and for your managers to understand about the business that add complexity. And these little things, they build up. And then you find yourself in a situation where you thought you were just delivering packages, but now you're having to manage all of these other types of things that if you can build the right systems, the right processes on a day-to-day basis for you and a manager, you can stay ahead of a lot of this. Obviously, that doesn't mean you've built a process so you're never going to have a bad service day. Like those are going to happen, and there's going to be exciting days. But I think a lot of it comes down to how well you manage from a day-to-day level and how well you've trained your managers to do so.
You just have to stay in it. You're never going to catch anything if you don't monitor it, whether that's you or whether that's someone, that works for you.
Yeah.
Depending on what size, you could be a driving AO, you could be a remote AO, but if you're not watching those numbers and trusting what's going on with your BC and local managers or supervisors or even driver level, it's important to stay connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest parts of your contract and your medals. So
it is.
If you're going to spend some time somewhere, that's definitely should be one of your priorities.
Got it.
So perfect. I think when it comes down to service, I think that really does help kind of show and help people understand a lot of what goes into it from a day-to-day level and how to manage it and properly run a business around it. So thank you guys both for going through all of that and for helping anyone listening, both for people who are new and have no idea and for those who've been in it for a while. There's a lot of things to learn from what you guys went through of how to do this correctly.
Yeah.